Welcome to the Oklahoma City Real Estate Show. On today's show, I'm going to be talking about the numbers showing for Edmond in the month of October 2022. We're going to jump right into the details here, and then I'm going to get into some commentary on why I believe Edmond is the way that it is and kind of give you a fundamental understanding of Oklahoma and the philosophy behind it, the idea of the town in the middle of nowhere, and it'll help you make good decisions for your family and your investment. So let's start out with the median sales price. The red line that we're looking at here is going to be Oklahoma City that we talk about very often on the show. The navy blue line is Edmond. Now, Edmond is a town that borders the northern side of Oklahoma City. It is a suburb, and it's really most known for new development and schools, very good quality schools that are well funded, partly by just the high median home value compared to the area. Now, nationally, of course, it's well below with a very low cost of living, and we'll get into why that is in a minute. But let's look at the median sales price. This is for the max, because we always want to know, where have we been relative throughout the time period? So this particular chart goes all the way back to 2009. And we see for a long time some just solid linear stability. And just recently, again, with the interest rates going lower and the mortgage index going up in terms of the amount of purchases, we see, the price finally surpassing that $350 median sales price in Edmond. Now, we've been, for the lion's share, around the 250, 200 to 250, which was right in line with almost, I think it was less than 25% of your income that was spent on your housing, which is phenomenal. That's great. And that really points to, again, the concept that is here in Oklahoma, which is, what stuff you have is not the most important thing. Family values, durable relationships that have been through the tops and the downs of the years, and really an old school caring about one another. And we've seen our fair shares of market crashes and market booms with the oil industry. And I think a lot of politicians have really personally been impacted by those, the effects of a very volatile industry, which created wives and spouses and kids that influence the decision of the policymakers to say, let's not make our public things contingent on these very uncertain things. For essence, most of even Oklahoma City's spending is actually debt-free. They tax and then they spend. So it's very fundamentally different from most cities in America, and that's why I really can't capture that in a short little YouTube video or a short little podcast that you can listen to. You kind of have to experience it and understand that shift of priority of this part of the country. So linear stability in the chart here from Edmond to Oklahoma City, we're seeing it quite clear. If you're thinking about buying or renting here or buying to rent to somebody, you're going to want to know this number right here. The average single family rent in August of 2022 came out to $2,181, which was a 10% gain. So basically it was at $2,000 and now it's at $2,100. And that, if for those that are financing, the 1% rule. So that would mean that you generally should be making a smart investment from a distance looking, saying, if it rents for $2,000, I'm going to buy it for $200,000. Okay, well, that's at 1%. And as the interest rates go up on your loans, that number's got to get better, that you've got to get better to pay for that higher interest rate. Now, if you're paying cash, that's a totally different scenario that we've got to run because we don't have that interest that's front loaded on top of that we've got to bear. So if you're paying cash right now, first off, you need to call me if you're wanting to buy here because the numbers are still working. If you're financing, the only situations we're really making ground on right now are properties that are listed below market value that we can then, add value to affordably. And usually we just end up right where we're supposed to be, but because of the way we can creatively finance those things and use funding from different sources, we can still gain. But that's still finding that And that means that you're not directly competing with primary occupant home buyers because they're usually concerned with their monthly payment. Because at the end of the day, maybe I'm going for renting to buying in that price point typically, and I'm concerned that I was paying this for rent. I know I can afford this monthly amount, and now I'm looking at homes in that monthly amount, and I typically have saved my money for my down payment, not for renovations such as flooring or carpet or paint. So I really just want to finance all that in by buying a home that's ready to move in. So typically an investor in a market like Edmond, where we're very linear market and it's high competition between you and a primary occupant, you are looking for homes that have not been updated or have some type of flaw that is pushing away primary occupant home buyers and gives you a value proposition to the seller to say, I don't care about the dirty carpet. I don't care about the hail-damaged roof. I've got a bid on that. I've seen the numbers. I've got the cash to be able to make this work. I just need a little bit of nudging on your purchase price here because of these various reasons. And that's really how we make deals work in the Edmond market. The benefit of once you get a deal in the Edmond market on the investor side is that if you've got a good property management company, or if you choose to self-manage, if you're a good person, okay, and what I mean by good person is somebody that is looking out for the interest of your customers. And your customer in that case is the tenant. If you're looking out for their family security by making sure their appliances are working, that when they file a maintenance report for a stove that's not working, or an air conditioner that goes out in the middle of summer, or a heater that's not functioning properly in the winter, and you don't address that issue with professionalism and speed, that person will rent from somebody else. And that's typically what we see in the quick turnovers, is that people are applying kind of a national logic to maintenance repairs, and that does not work in a neighborhood that's primarily focused on family values, okay? And I'm not saying that we're much different than other American cities, because I've lived in several other cities that had the same principles. But I think we often forget about those principles when we're investing because they do influence people's decision, and primarily people's decision to keep the cost of living low, because when the cost of living is kept low, we have more time to go to family events, take off and go to field trips, and those kind of things, which is very important to Oklahomans. So let's look again at the individual price breakdowns of Edmond. Let's look at, I want to look at your actual inventory. So our month supply of inventory here for the 100,000 or less at the bottom, but you look, it's actually bumping up slightly there at the end. For this whole thing, I'm going to go through it. So we've got a slight increase. We're still under a month and a half of inventory supply of $100,000 or less in the Edmond area. Now, Edmond is actually outpacing Oklahoma City in the $100,000 and less, which those typically are not brick homes. Those are frame homes that were built in the 1940s that were really far out in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes the construction is really well done on those. Sometimes it's not. That's kind of a case-by-case basis. That's kind of where you really got to know your team and really be able to know construction to make wise purchases in that price point, specifically in Edmond, because of the way that town developed around the railroad tracks or the railroad system of Guthrie. It actually, it created a have and a have-not, and if you bought from a have-not builder, you might run into issues, and even local regional banks here will ask questions about what type of veneer is on your home. If it's brick, they'll require a higher down payment on a commercial loan, on a commercial loan. If it's brick on the outside, they'll require a less down payment. If it's a frame home on the outside or a siding, they'll require more down payment. And that just tells you fundamentally they've done their risk assessment, and on a regional bank level, they're seeing the pros and cons to the construction type, and we mirror that because it's sound decision making that they've learned through trial and error. So $250 and $350 price point. Again, this is really the $250 to $350 is If I could describe who buys that, I would describe someone that's worked for their company for 4 or 5 years, or they are now transferring into a managerial position in another company. They're just now breaking through because their median mortgage is higher than the median. So that causes them to have usually a higher salary, or they're families that have decided to spend more of their monthly spend on their house. They have prioritized their house. Either case, these are people that are taking care of their homes. They're taking care of their yards. They're taking care of the way things appear and are, which results in a very stable neighborhood, very well-maintained cars, not tons of cars parked in the front along the streets. 5 or 6 people living in one house. That's not going to occur in that 250 to 350, which is again why I'm saying, if you are purchasing and buying into that, make sure that that's what you want. Because if you want to let your dog run around free off the leash and not care and yell and all this kind of stuff, you probably won't be as welcomed as you think. So something to consider in that price point. Now, as we move to the $350 to $650 price point, this is where we see the trend start to go up pretty rapidly. And I would be able to talk about this all day, but I treasure your time. If you want to talk more in depth about this with me personally, you can email me at landon@okcreal.com, or you can schedule, which I prefer that, a phone call, a 20-minute phone call or a 20-minute Zoom call on my website right there, so we can talk about whether this is even a good match for you or not. In 20 minutes, you will learn so much about this, and we'll really decide if now's the time to buy or if you should just hang on the sidelines a little bit longer and reprioritize maybe what you're doing. So I want to hear your goals. I want to kind of think, okay, if that goal was my goal, what would I do and what would our team do? And that's basically it. We can do that in about 20 minutes. okcreal.com/contact. There'll be a link below this podcast and the video on that. Thanks for listening to me, and you have a wonderful day, and keep Oklahoma strong.